Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up on today's show, Chip Kelly replacements if the Las Vegas Raiders decide to firing him during the season. Now, all these candidates that you're going to see are not candidates that the Raiders would bring in 2026 because we got to be able to face the facts here. If you move on from Chip in the regular season, I don't think it's very likely that they move on from him in the regular season, but if they do, they would end up promoting an interim candidate. And there's a few guys that you could potentially look at, and we will look at those candidates today on this show. Now, if you did not know that the Raiders have had conversations about moving on from Chip Kelly, I do encourage you to check out a video that I released on Tuesday to just get a little bit more information out on it. But I had a source tell me that the Raiders are considering moving on from Chip Kelly. His job is in jeopardy, and he could end up being fired. Now, again, I was told this in baseline of probably not going to be fired this season, probably going to be fired in the next offseason. But overall, Chip Kelly potentially getting moved on from is something that we got to sit back, we got to look at, we got to be able to discuss, and you got to be able to sit up here and go that it's not likely that it happens. But anything in regards to the Raiders, it's definitely possible. So I'm going to give you guys a deal here. I'm a man that likes to create deals. It's how this show goes. If this video gets 2,000 likes, I'm going to do a Chip Kelly replacement video based on outside candidates, other people from other NFL teams that we could bring in to be the Raiders offensive coordinator in the year of 2026, because I think that's really the video that a lot of y'all want. But at the time of I'm making this show, you got to understand the Raiders aren't going to bring in somebody else. They would promote from within, and that's what I'm going to talk about on this program. We're talking about it on the program, and the Raiders have begun having conversations around it because of the offensive struggles that this team has had. And it's bad from top to bottom. We are bottom 2 in the NFL in points per game. We're not any good in being able to move the football. We don't convert in the red zone. And the Raiders fired their offensive coordinator last season, Luke Getsy, for doing a better job with far less talent and way less money than what Chip Kelly is doing this season. If Pete Carroll's not going to take blame, and if he's not going to point the finger at Geno Smith or his son Brennan Carroll on the offensive line, they're going to point the finger at somebody, and somebody's got to be the scapegoat. I am under the impression that the scapegoat, if the offense can't get it clicking, is going to be, in fact, Chip Kelly. So my question to you is this. If Chip Kelly is fired, because there is clearly a Chip Kelly problem, but I think one of the problem is, you can't just say that's a problem. We need to be able to find a solution. I don't know if there's a solution on this Raiders team. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know if there is a coach on this team that I trust more to call plays than Chip Kelly, because it could just be a Geno Smith problem. But if the Raiders do decide to move on from Chip, who should be the new interim OC? I want you to go down in the comments section. I want you to let me know, because after this YouTube ad break, I'm going to give you the 5 coaches on this Raiders team that I think it could be. Let's go to the very first name and probably the least likely of the candidates. Tight ends coach Luke Steckel. And the reason why I'm going to put Steckel on this list is because I think he deserves to be on this list, because I think he is a very well-respected coach. And I've made this statement before, and I'll make it again. Think about the way that y'all think about Rob Leonard in terms of being a defensive line coach. The way that you think about Rob Leonard in terms of defensive line is the exact same way that you should think about Luke Steckel in terms of the tight ends, because even though he's got no OC experience, which is probably why he won't end up getting the job, he lasted through 4 different head coaches with the Tennessee Titans. I think Mike Vrabel's a smart head coach. He's proven it in New England right now. Vrabel and that organization kept him multiple times, right? But mainly the Titans. They kept him multiple times when they moved on from people. Why? He's a very well-respected tight ends coach. I know we have Brock Bowers. I know we have Michael Mayer. But I also think that we have one of the better young tight end rooms in the NFL, and Steckel should get credit for that. So because of all that, I think that his name should be in the ring, though I don't think it would actually be considered. These are some of the names that I think are probably going to be considered a little bit more, and this one's going to scare the hell out of you. Nate Carroll, the assistant quarterback coach. Same thing. I don't think that he would get the job. I do think the Raiders would consider him a little bit more because of his last name, but I really think that Nate Carroll would get a promotion to another position if Chip Kelly was fired, and I'll tell you what that is here in just a moment. But he has been in the NFL since 2011, 0 OC experience, and I think that this would be a Nepo promotion by Pete. Like, there's no track record that Nate deserves a job, but if I've learned anything from covering the Pete Carroll Raiders, it's if you got connections, you're going to have an opportunity. He was fired after 1 year in Carolina in 2024. He was a pass game coordinator, and I think it shows like the one job that he got where he wasn't with his dad, he was fired in 1 year. I get he's got plenty of NFL experience, but those are all NFL experience and jobs underneath Pete Carroll with the Seattle Seahawks. So Nate Carroll on the list, Steckel on the list, but to me, there are 3 actual candidates that the Raiders would consider if they fire Chip Kelly. I'll tell you who those 3 candidates are here in just a moment. Before I do, you already knew I was going to tell you. Prize Picks, get $50 when you play 5. Down below in the comments section. It's going to be down below in the description as well. I love Prize Picks. Chubbs loves Prize Picks. And if you want to download America's #1 fantasy sports app, then listen the heck up right now, because even though the weather is changing, being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Join millions of users and sign up for America's #1 fantasy sports app. You can also follow other Prize Picks players directly in the app, copy their lineups in one click. So if you wanted to be able to follow my lineup, and if you wanted to go flex play, power play, how you play on Prize Picks is up to you, then download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS, that is CLNS, to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS, get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineups. If you like being right, it's good to be right on Prize Picks, where you have that ability to put the extra money in your pocket. And I'll keep saying this. If you plan on watching the Raiders, give yourself something to root for if you know that they're not going to win. Get a lineup in on Prize Picks, root for the more, root for the less, root for putting money in your pocket. Let's go to the next Chip Kelly replacement if he is fired by the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't know if you did it on purpose, Chugs, but I love that you did it. Brennan Carroll, Littlehead, offensive line coach. He's also in charge of our running game coordinator, or is that just the photo? Oh, that's just the photo. They tried to hide him, and I don't blame him. So, Brennan Carroll does have NFL and college coaching experience. He was the offensive coordinator at Arizona, where he was also the offensive line coach. He was also the offensive coordinator and O-line coach with the University of Washington in the year 2024. He ended up leaving that gig to go take the job with the Raiders. Now, you could say he wasn't fired. He was going to get fired in those gigs that he had, and the reason why he didn't, again, he knew that he was going to get another opportunity elsewhere. And, let's face the facts here. If you're going to move on from Chip Kelly, you're probably going to hire somebody who's got offensive coordinator experience. I can't imagine what would happen. I don't even want to think about what I would do, but I'll give you my word right now. If the Raiders were to name Brennan Carroll or even Nate Carroll to be the interim OC, buckle up. I can't even tell you what I would do right now on the spot. All I know is I'll be live. It would be a live show you don't want to miss, and I would start calling for Pete Carroll's job. And I say this because I am a little bit nervous. And I had a source tell me, again, many months ago, that they thought the Raiders' plan could potentially be to hire Pete Carroll and then name Brennan Carroll the successor in a few years. That scares the absolute hell out of me. And nobody here would want that to happen. And if Mark Davis decided to do that, I actually think that there would be more of an outrage in that move than when they hired Josh McDaniels, and I don't even know if that's humanly possible, but it truly is. I mean this when I say this. If the Raiders were to hire Brennan Carroll as the interim OC, I'm going to go nuts. And I don't even know what I do. And that's coming from a guy who went live for 26 straight hours when the Raiders fired Josh McDaniels. It would be that type of crazy, I think. Let's go to the next name coming up here of the Chip Kelly replacements if he's fired. I'm going to go Joe Philbin. He's senior offensive assistant right now for the Las Vegas Raiders, and another guy that's very well liked, very well respected around circles, especially also in that locker room. And he has a lot, and I mean a lot of experience in the NFL. He was the Packers OC in 2007 to 2011, and then also again in 2018. Because he also has head coaching experience, I wonder if the Raiders were like, well, the Pete Carroll experiment did not work. Maybe we decide to hire an OC who then also could kind of be like that head coach OC role to a guy like Pete Carroll, and then he could be a part of the program next season when we're trying to go out and find a brand new offensive coordinator. But to me, the number one name that I think if the Raiders decided to move on from Chip, and it's probably why they won't move on from Chip unless Chip really truly wants to step away, I think that they would end up going with this name right here. But you know what? Before I tell you who the coach is that I think ends up getting that job if Chip is fired, I just want to tell y'all about some of the legends that always show up and always show love on this program. You guys have probably heard me say bang a lot, and I wish this was the Raiders offense this season. But you know what? These guys are scoring way more than the Chip Kelly-led Raiders offense. So shout out to the Weldinator, Yoda, Drodger Jeep, Jerry Danley, and Lord Cameron Abbott, our bang leaders for the month of November. And if you bang in the month of November, you're going to have an opportunity to go home with a signed Raiders Report helmet from Jeremy Chuggs and I. It's the first one ever. It might be the last. I don't know. But if you're banging on this show, I see you, and obviously we appreciate it here. Let's go to the final name, and it's going to be Greg Olson, the Raiders quarterback coach. Quite frankly, I think the easiest thing for the Raiders to do, hire Greg Olson and then promote Nate Carroll to quarterback coach. I think it's what this team honestly, truly would do. He's got 15 years of OC experience. He has coached the Detroit Lions, the St. Louis Rams, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Oakland Raiders, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it was the Oakland Raiders as well. I accidentally put LV in there, so that's on me to separate it. But bottom line is he's had 6 different offensive coordinator jobs. Hasn't been great, I will say that. The other reason why I think that Greg would end up getting the nod is because he worked with Pete and Gino in 2023. He's the only one out of that list of names that can say, I worked with Pete Carroll and Geno Smith in 2023. And I do believe this would be the hire. And then again, Carroll ends up going to the quarterback coach. But at the same exact time, I've seen Greg Olson as an offensive coordinator. I don't know how it would end up looking. I don't know what it would look like. I would hope it would mean more under center, because when you're looking at a lot of the teams right now, teams that are going out of shotgun and pistol, they actually play a lot worse. Teams that are going under center and playing more of that style of offense where they're playing that FU style, it is working, and that's kind of the style Greg liked to go with Derek Carr and company. But the problem with the Greg Olson offense, with this offensive line, I have no idea what it would end up looking like, and I don't even know if it would be better than Chip Kelly. So, if the Raiders decided to fire Kelly, these to me are your top 5 replacements. Luke Steckel, Nate Carroll, Brennan Carroll, Joe Philbin, and Greg Olson. This list is solely, and I mean solely, based on what I think would happen, not what I personally would do for the Raiders. Because if it was what I would personally do for the Raiders, the only 3 names that would be on here are Luke Steckel, Joe Philbin, and Greg Olson. And I honestly don't know if any 3 of those guys are better than Chip Kelly.